Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I'm doing a Man Booker 2018 book review today, and the one I'm going to be talking about is From a Low and Quiet Sea by Donal. Now, when I did my Man Booker rundown of just what books were in there, and what was I looking forward to, I put this as my completely blind pick to win. And that meant I went in with some pretty high expectations. I now would be somewhat disappointed if this win. It's not that I didn't like the book, but let's go into it a little bit more about what I didn't like, what I did like, what the whole thing is, and hopefully give you guys some insight. So From a Low and Quiet Sea, for the vast majority of the book, is a collection of 3 unconnected short stories. The first is about a man called Farouk, who is from Syria, and he is a doctor in Syria and is talking about his life in that country as war kind of creeps closer and closer to his everyday experience, that of his children, that of his wife, and how they kind of feel somewhat separate from this, that they feel almost they occupy a space in society where war cannot touch them. And as we move through, we find out how untrue that is. He's a man who is trying to escape from his home and who's trying to move away from the life that he has, not out of choice, but because the country's kind of got to a stage where he feels unsafe and has to make some really radical decisions. So that's our first character. The second is a young man called Lampy, who is living with his mother and his grandfather, his mother's father, in a kind of fairly normal young adult life. I think he's doing a kind of minimum wage job, having not got the best grades at school. He's working as a care home assistant, and the relationship with him and his grandfather was actually really nice. He kind of discusses about girls he fancies and mates he used to have and all of those kind of normal things, and that felt a very relatable, realistic depiction of what someone in their late teens, early 20s might be doing in Ireland. And I really did enjoy the relationship between him and his grandfather. That did feel very realistic to me. And then the final story is about a man called John, and John is, of our 3 characters, easily the most unlikable. He's basically in his story going through the sins he's committed, and almost doing a confessional to the reader about all the things he's done wrong in his life. Now at the end of this book, the 3 characters do come together, and there is a tying together of these stories. However, that was one of the things I didn't like. So I'll talk about the 2 things I didn't like, and I gave this book 4 stars. So they aren't things that I think just make the book awful. But I thought the first story was by far the strongest. If it had continued with the same strength as the first story, this easily would be my forerunner. The second story I did like an awful lot. There were elements of it I really enjoyed, but was slightly worse, I think, than the very first of the stories. And the last one, I just really didn't care about. I really didn't feel it was of the same standard as the other two stories in here, and the way in which those 3 stories were taken and sewn up was so neat and so tidy that it made everything feel somewhat unreal and a little bit somewhat naive, I think, as an ending, which was really frustrating for me, because a good way through this book, up until the last sort of third, give or take, I thought it was going to be 5 stars, and I thought, oh, do you know what, I've managed to pick the winner before we get there. I'd be disappointed if this one won, because I think the author is such a brilliant writer and isn't such a good storyteller. I felt as though the writing was of a much higher standard than the overall plot and direction. The individual kind of character vignettes were gorgeous. I didn't get on with John, but maybe other people might. And it was just a bit of a shame. I think I would definitely read other things by this author. It's not that I didn't enjoy reading it, but I had very high expectations going in, and I wish the ending hadn't been so clean. I think that of all of it was probably what set me off on, oh, that's such a shame, more so than John. I can kind of put up with the idea I would have liked one of the 3 a lot less than the others, but I think the 2 combined just let me down a little bit. I did enjoy it. I would recommend it just for the first story. I thought that was brilliantly told, but I didn't adore it, which is a shame. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you've read the book and if you liked it, if you didn't like it. Yeah, and those are, I think I've wrapped up all of the Man Bookers I've read so far. I'm still on the Over story. I gave it on a bit of a pause just because it's very long. I'm still really enjoying it, I just can't carry it to and from work. And I've started reading From a Mad and Furious City, I think that's what it's called, which is the one that's set in London around the murder of a young soldier and the impact that has on the Muslim community and local people of colour. So I'll be round at some stage talking about those two books, and I have two more that I own still to read, which is The Daisy Johnson and Washington Black, which my boyfriend's lent me. So those will be the next couple ones that you'll be seeing. Hopefully you're enjoying this series, and yeah, I'll chat to you guys in another video soon. Bye!